Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, you lovely Steel City Insider podcast viewers, listeners. I'm one of your hosts here on episode number 67 alongside Mr. Jim Wexell. Jim, how are you today?
I'm doing great, except, our guest didn't show up. And I thought for sure he would. I reached out to John Mellencamp. I put it on Facebook that I thought we could get him. After last week's 2,000 views of Faneca and Wolfley, 2,000 views.
2,000.
That didn't seem to impress the Mellencamp camp.
Man, I mean, Mr. Mellencamp, I mean, do we need to hit 5,000 views? What is it? We want you to come on the show.
Here's the thing. I wrote about him. I've put him in my books. I have keep bumping into him, but I've never seen him. And I'm a big rock and roll fanatic, and I've never seen him. I had tickets to him once. He was warming up for the Kinks in 1981, but I don't watch warm-up bands in 1981. I'm cruising the lobby in the bars and seeing what's up. I'm 21 years old. So I come back and I said, how was the warm-up band? And my buddy said, really, really good. I said, really? Who was it? He goes, I think he said his name was John Cougar. Now, so that was in 1981, and I missed him then. And I met him in the press box. I gave him a light one time. I was like, who is this bum with this beautiful woman? And then the bum started walking right at me. And he goes, hey, you got a light? And I'm like, no wonder this bum's with that beautiful woman. It's Mellencamp. And so I gave him a light. And so I thought that, and plus the 2,000 views last week, I thought for sure we could nab Mellencamp. He's in town. He's in his hotel room. Why wouldn't he want to talk ball? Ball, rock and roll, and cigarettes. We could talk about all those topics here.
I'll fire one up right now.
Except we have OTA news. We do have actual football news. There's a lot of news, too.
We do. We have a ton of football content to bring your way. And, Jim, we're going to jump into it. But, John Mellencamp, if you're out there, we want you to come on the show. This is our request. So maybe episode 60, maybe next week he'll be here. Maybe he'll be
talking
here.
Ball, talking rock and roll, talking cigarettes. What else you want, man?
Hey, I'll even roll up a pack on my sleeve, like in the old days.
I actually texted Randy Bauman, the TV, and said, "Hey, give me some advice. I want to get this guy on the Steel City Insider podcast. And he's in town." He wrote back, "Buy up all the cigarettes in town."
Well, okay, so we know what our objective is between now and next week, but in terms of our objective today, it is the beginning of Steelers organized team activities, OTAs for short, running May 23rd through the June 8th. Jim, you are the insider himself. You've been there. You've got the scoop from OTAs. What do you have to share with us?
Oh, well, what interests you most?
Oh, man.
Let me preface all the stuff I'm going to say by saying I had all this stuff confirmed in the locker room. It'll all be a story form. I think it's got to be notebook form because I talked to so many different people for me to put together one coherent story. And I don't want to save stuff for a story tomorrow. I want to go do the same thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Go around, get a notebook. Who doesn't love reading juicy notebooks?
I do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I'll have tomorrow. All this stuff that I'm going to say today have been confirmed because we can't report what we see unless it's confirmed in the locker room by players. That's all done. But I'm not going to sit here and go. And I talked to Dan Moore after, and he confirmed all this. I'm going to put that in my story, all that.
There you go. I love the strategy. I love the strategy. And what better place to start than the signal caller for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kenny Pickett. A lot of pressure on him heading into season number 2. Big year for him to see what type of development he's made from last year until this year. What have you seen from Kenny? What are you hearing from Kenny? What do you have to share about
it's funny you start with Kenny because I allow the mob to go talk to him while I can talk to 52 other players. Kenny, he was asked about all the things that he said on Ben Roethlisberger's show, and he confirmed that, yes, I did say those. So I'll refer you to the Ben Roethlisberger show. As far as what he looked like, I mean, he's Kenny Pickett. He's thicker. He looks in great shape. I tell you, his arm looked good.
How about his hands? Any bigger? His hands any bigger?
No, but You asked me the wrong guy. This is the only one I can't really tell you everything because I had no confirmation.
All right. Well, I'm going to jump
I
around.
had no confirmation that, yes, I look good today.
I'm going to stick on the offensive side of the football. We'll just jump around with the positional areas. I did see some reports about Jaylen Warren that he's looking a little bit larger, thicker
Okay.
as well.
All right. We all know what the running back situation. Ask me about the offensive line, please. And the defensive line and defensive secondary. Those are all the change positions.
All right. We're playing bully ball this year in Pittsburgh. All the additions on the offensive line. What did you see from the offensive lineman?
Okay, Dan Moore. First of all, I'm talking to Craig Wolfley. I go, what do you think? He goes, look at this guy. He is taking this threat seriously. Talking about Dan Moore. Mm-hmm. He looked like a totally different human mass. Of the mass is all still there. And I made the mistake of asking Dan. He was working first team left tackle in front of Broderick. Broderick was second team. I asked Dan how much weight he lost because he, it's coming down into the taper, the thin waist. And he said, I actually gained weight. So, he added muscle and lost fat. And then I said, he goes, I've never felt better. He goes, I really worked hard. I go, the motivation of a first round pick, huh? And he goes, I don't think he really liked that. He said, I've got enough motivation as is. And true, he's entering his third year, but he's becoming a man now. And so that's an example of what competition is going to do for that entire room.
Yeah. And
so I talked to James Daniels, what's it going to do for the interior? James is the right guard, Mason Cole's the center, and Isaac Siumalo is the left guard. He was raving about Siumalo. I said, Jason, is it Jason Kelsey, the Eagles center?
Yeah. Yep.
One of the Kelsey boys said it's the smartest guy that he ever played next to, right? Smartest guard. And the Steelers got a steal. Kelsey of the Eagles said that. And we have heard things like that about Siumalo, that this was the free agent guy they got.
Yeah.
And James Daniels said, did Kelsey say that? I said, yeah. He goes, because I'm noticing that myself. I've been hanging with that guy. All I do is ask him questions. I think he's getting tired of me asking questions, but he's smart. He goes, I'm not surprised that his former teammates say that about him, but he hadn't heard that. So it's pretty cool.
Wow.
These lights keep getting brighter. Did you ever notice that?
I know you can adjust the warmth.
I do. I keep having to turn them down. I keep getting brighter as we speak.
You look good.
Maybe it's getting all the gases. So anyway, that's your interior. Kendrick Green was the backup center. Dotson was the backup left guard. And Chooks was the right tackle.
Yeah.
So, and Herbig was the backup right guard.
Okay.
So I talked to all those guys, and stuff will be in the Steel City Insider tomorrow behind the paywall. Some of it has to be behind the paywall. This podcast is free. That's why we were able to strike the bonanza of 2.1K.
We're
almost famous.
I know, we're close. I think that's a movie. We're almost famous. So speaking of almost famous, you talked about some of the changes in body composition for Dan Moore, showing that he's been putting in the time, putting in the effort. He's getting leaner, he's getting bigger. It looked like he lost weight, but he's probably just actually adding muscle. What about some of these guys that are on the fringe? You mentioned Kendrick Green playing at backup center. Do you see any growth in his stature? Or even Kevin Dotson, a guy who's seems to be in jeopardy at his position. Any changes in there?
I'm just going to stick with the guys that stand out. I'm not going to go around and, monitor their offseason. The guys that stand out. Yeah. Calvin Austin is the last offensive guy that we can go to. But for one thing, let me just say this about the offensive line. Wolfley was just amazed at the mass, the athletes, the number of them. Wolfley, I have a feeling he's going to write something about this. So he'll get into, I would have quoted him otherwise, but I'm like, he'll probably write about this in a couple of days. but he was just so impressed by the group. And that's what Faneca tried to say to us last week. And that's what James Daniels was agreeing with. Just the huge increase in competition is going to make all of them that much better. But as Alan said, offensive line is a fraternity, a brotherhood, and there's not going to be hurt feelings.
Yeah.
It's all a positive. It's not like, oh, this guy's now in my competition lane. No, it's everybody's into it. And Daniel said you could tell the enthusiasm upswing. Everybody's into this. And so that was one guy that talked about how excited he was for this upcoming ride. And there was a defensive guy that did that we'll get to later.
Yeah. And, I think that's a massive part of any type of sports. And just to kind of stray a bit from OTAs, when you have that intangible fact component of enthusiasm, optimism, excitement, guys buying into the team concept, into what their goals are, I think that can go a long way. So if you have players talking about that now, I think that bodes well for the season. Jim, one player that I wanted to hit on real fast, sticking with that O-line theme here, even though he's not an offensive lineman, the rookie Darnell Washington, the tight end, is he as big as everybody said he is?
Well, I think everybody was getting a little wrong impression that he would be a 300-pound tackle. He's not that thick. He doesn't have the tree trunks that people were like, oh, I thought he'd be bigger. But I mean, he's a big man. Don't get me wrong. But he's a tight end. He's going to run patterns. He can run deep. So he's not going to get really as big as a tackle. So to tell you the truth, on one way to answer your question, yes, he's that big. Two, I sit next to people that keep saying, man, I thought he would be bigger after everybody talked about him being a tackle. So,
okay.
I don't really know how to put that.
Right. And then you did mention Calvin Austin, wide receiver, who was hurt all last season, but there are big things expected from him this year.
Well, I mean, he had what was that? Liz Frank. Mm-hmm. And so everybody's nervous about that. Some guys don't really recover well, especially speed guys. And he was out there the first day. And so there was no problem medically with them wanting to keep him back like they did with the new middle linebacker, Holcomb. Mm-hmm. Holcomb's getting some time off. You're not going to hear much about him, and why Mark Robinson started ahead of him is wise, because they're easing him in. But there was no easing Austin in. They even threw a bomb that he didn't catch up to. And it was one of the first plays I saw. And I asked him about it. And he goes, oh, yeah, I think we're going to do a lot of that this year. He goes, I couldn't catch up to that one. But he's telling me what they're telling him, what they're scheming. So he's thinking he's going to be a guy that's going to go deep a lot. Nice. And I said, everybody asked him how the foot is, and he feels great. But I said, did you blow it out? Did you go 100% on that deep ball? He goes, no, I'm not totally blowing it out yet.
Yeah.
So that's where Calvin Austin stands. But he seemed very enthusiastic and hopeful and excited. Yeah. And from what I saw, and he confirmed, the team has high plans for him.
Nice. Yeah, a lot of optimism with his return, and it's good to hear that vertical element, the focal point of the offense. Shifting over there, Jim, you were talking about the defensive line, additions of Keanu Benton through the draft this year. DeMarvin Leal's entering his second season, so a lot of young dudes on that defensive line that hopefully are going to take that step in development. What did you see from those players?
Yeah, DeMarvin Leal, he said, call me Marv. So Marv. From now on, Marv.
Home alone.
When you go up to him at training camp, hey, Marv, you got a minute? He'll be like, oh, cool. He's not calling me DeMarvin. He must be around here for a while.
Let me make a note of that.
Marv. Make a note. Yeah.
All right.
So, Marv, I see you're playing defensive tackle next to Cam. He said, well, it's the first day, Larry Ogunjobi, presumably. But I said, are they blowing your weight up? They want you at defensive tackle? He goes, no, same as last year, moving around. I asked him what his weight was. He said 290. I said, do you want to go up or down? Because if he's going to be an edge, he's going to need to lose 5.
Yeah.
If he was going to be a tackle, he needs to gain 5.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know. I'm going to keep doing as well as I feel on what I need. But right now, he's at a happy place at 290. And he's a defensive tackle, and the plans are to continue moving him around. And with Keanu Benton, he's a 305-pounder. more of a nose tackle, but it's still, 15 more pounds than Leal, who played edge last year. Only 15 more pounds, and he's got pass rush explosion. I said, how many guys are they going to be moving all around? He grinned like, wait till you see. He was excited. And Cam's that kind of guy too. Cam was a defensive end in college, a 4-3 defensive end. So, I mean, of course, they play a 3-4 in theory, but not much nose tackle was getting worked on today. So it's that kind of approach they're using. So it's, two tackles, Leal and Hayward I don't even know if Hayward's 300 pounds, probably, but he can play end. He can get outside. Leal's better outside, faster. And then you've got, TJ wasn't there today, but Roche filled in, and talking about Marcus Golden coming in for a visit, right? That was on your agenda, right?
Yeah, I had that on there. The veteran out of Arizona, 3 seasons with over 10 sacks. He came in. The Steelers obviously need some depth there. That's exciting.
Yeah. So that's another guy. So, Quincy Roche gets you get the next man up thing today. Because he's been there like a couple weeks longer than the rookie, Nick Herbig. And so Nick was getting a lot of work too outside, but of course, Alex Highsmith. But that's what we were seeing today. More, they were working at slot corner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So which brings us to, yes, Arthur Millette got the axe. We had a little pre-game conversation about Millette before we came on here. We'll leave that there. But Chandron Sullivan, I'm looking at my notes here, getting some reps at that nickel spot. Right.
So with a 4-man front, you get your nickel, 5 DBs and your 2 inside linebackers. So Chadron Sullivan, is that right? Or is it Sullivan Chadron?
Chandron Sullivan.
Okay. I'm going to have trouble with that name for a long time. Number 34. He's Terrell Edmonds' number. Chandon Sullivan. He played with Patrick Peterson at Minnesota. So I talked to Patrick Peterson. He's the defensive guy that's really excited about the ride we have in front of us. And I'm kind of excited too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw my bet on Facebook.
I was just going to bring it up. I saw your bet slip there.
I mean, I'm not predicting in the paper that the Steelers are going to go to the Super Bowl, but their odds are 3,400 to 100 of winning the AFC. So I put 50 to win 1,700. I mean, come on.
Hey, I like your odds.
Okay, but I'm not that excited, but I have that enthusiasm. I like what's happening. And it was bubbling all over Patrick Peterson's face because I talked to Joey Porter too, and Joey got a lot of first-team reps, and he said Patrick allowed him to have those opposite Levi Wallace.
Okay.
And so I asked Patrick, and he goes, "Oh, the coach wants to see this, and the Grady wants to see that." And I said, "Well, it sounds like you're doing some coaching too. You're letting them have your reps." He goes, "Man, I've had 1 million reps in this league." I said, "But it's your first year here. Don't you need?" He goes, "I'll be fine." But Joey needed to get his, I forget the term he used, his wings with the bigger guys. I mean, instead of covering the rookie receivers as he did at camp. And so he liked what he saw from Joey. And that's when he said, "This is going to be a fun ride." Yeah. I said, "Well, when Joey gets up to speed and understands things and has the coach's confidence and they want to play him on 3rd down, do you bump inside?" He goes, "Well, that's very possible. We're talking about it." And he did some of that today in a different package that I didn't talk to him about. Yeah. So that's definitely in the plans, but he did not want to diminish the abilities and potential of his former teammate from Minnesota. He didn't rave about him, just said he's a good ball player, 6 years experience, tough, physical little guy. He said, Tallman always talks to us about big men who can run and little guys who can hit. Yeah. And he said, that's this little guy. And he is a little guy, number 34, Chandon Sullivan. He's 5'11", 189. Boy, he sure don't look 5'11", but 189, yeah. So he's playing a lot of nickel, and Patrick believes that he didn't want to be pulling coaching stuff, but that's how I see it. Joey's going to come in for him, and he's going to bump over, especially on pass downs. And Patrick did say, I said, you still want to go 14 seasons? And I think this is his 13th, right?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. I said, man, I see you doing Woodson things as free safety and staying here even longer. He goes, season number 14 will be at safety. And I didn't know if he misspoke, but I have that on my tape. Season 14 will be at safety, and then I'll take it from there.
Okay.
So, yeah, write that down too, just in case. Don't report it as news, but keep it under your hat.
I got it. So I got my little Still Sitting Inside podcast notebook. So it's going in there, along with some Wexellisms that are in that book. So you
didn't write down what I said about Arthur Millette, did you?
I did.
That was short. Three words.
That's VIP access. If you really that's the real insider. We're that to you guys. I got two more things here, and then let's wrap up. And the last one I'll save because I know you're going to love me for asking it. But and speaking of safety, who was running alongside Fitzpatrick? Was it Keanu Neal or was it DeMonte Casey?
I talked to Keanu Neal, and he's wearing 31. He appreciated me telling him that there was another linebacker / strong safety that wore 31 here once.
31. Oh.
Guy by the name of Donnie Shell.
Duh.
Well, he didn't know either. And
yeah.
he was very delighted. And I said, is that you? Are you the linebacker safety? Because, that 3 safety look. He goes, well, I go, you want to be in the strong safety derby? And she's, yeah. And he said he told me he played some free safety today because Minka sat, if not all, a lot. Mm-hmm. Guys like Minka, you want your new guys getting these reps with team one.
Yeah.
And so Keanu was getting some free safety. Minka was still practicing. But the other guy was the strong safety.
Yeah.
And these kind of things can flip every day or every week. The coaches didn't tell us what their plans are, but I can give you the initial thinking right now. Might not mean much later, but I think more so than checking out everybody's weight gain, I want to see what the coaches are doing with them, first of all. Yeah. His first day I don't know, Broderick Jones might be getting the second week, but all I can say is Dan Moore looked really good today. Doesn't look like he's going to give that position up real easily. So it's going to be great competition and everybody will benefit. And same as what Shandon Sullivan is doing. Why am I having such a hard time with that name?
I was calling him Chandran. I thought there was an R in there.
Well, see, I look at his name. They have last name first, and I'm wondering if his first name's Sullivan. It's a guy with 2 last names, so I'm confused.
Hey, maybe that's his nickname, 2 last names. Like the General. So, remember the days of the General, Jim, back in the day when this thing first started?
Well, we'll find some new nicknames.
Hey, so you're going to love me for closing the show on this because you often love when I go this direction, but I figure this is a good way to wrap this up, being we're coming up here on 30 minutes. But I got to ask, how's my boy Presley Harvin looking?
I looked at him. He walked past me. I can't say I noticed any difference.
Okay.
So if you want me to say he looks fat, I didn't see a belly. I mean, he's a stocky punter.
Yeah.
But I saw no change, nothing really noteworthy. And that's a really weird question.
Well, hey,
what are you looking for?
I'm just, maybe was he booming some punts? Was he being a little bit more consistent in his practice? Something, a glimmer of hope.
Well, they brought in some real competition this year, didn't they?
They did, and I can't remember the
Braden Mann.
Okay.
Braden Mann. They signed in free agency. He's got 4 years of experience.
Yeah.
Doesn't say here where he played before, and I apologize. I should know these facts. It's just start of a new season. I took last week off.
Yeah, and now
I'm ready. I'm ready to write. I'm going to go to John Mellencamp tonight. Okay, and I'm going to sit in the 4th row. And when he looks at me, I'm going to tell him how disappointed I am for missing the podcast.
Yeah. Are Jack and Diane going with you?
No.
Did you see what I did there?
Yeah, I saw. It's really cool. But Pursuta. I want to get Pursuta on with him on our show. Mike Pursuta went last night, and I turned on DVE, and he said it's a horrible show. He didn't like the movie clips at the beginning. So anyone going tonight, skip the first 35 minutes. In Louisville, warm-up band, he shows old movie clips. Marlon Brando, James Dean, Paul Newman, things like that. I don't know why, set a tone, but at least I know, so I'm going to go late. And the set list looks great. I think Mike was mad because of the parking garage. He told me about the parking garage. The one in the 6th Street parking garage is a mess inside. So that's another tip for viewers.
Got it.
I think people are starting to turn their show off. So we better wrap.
Yeah, we came full circle there. We started with Mellencamp, we ended with Mellencamp, and that's going to do it for episode 67. It's the Kimo von Oelhoffen episode. We will be back here next week with more coverage from the OTAs, from the insider himself, Mr. Jim Wexell. You can check out Jim's work at the Still City Insider. Give him a follow on Twitter at Jim Wexell. You can check out my work at thestillstudy.com. Give me a follow at Still Study, and we will see you back here next week for episode number 68. Jim, have a great week.
You too, Jeremy.